Good morning, and welcome to UUCC, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua. We are a group of spiritual free thinkers gathered to celebrate life, build community, and better the world. And wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome. My name is Thomas Lyon. I'm going to be your worship associate for this morning. Today's service will be led by our very own Eileen Casey Campbell. Thank you to everyone this morning on the worship team, which also includes our very own Bill Mells with music. If this is your first visit, welcome. If this is your 1000th visit, welcome back. This service will be live streamed on YouTube as well as recorded locally. We plan to continue hybrid worship throughout this church year. So please join us every week, whether it's in person, online, or at home. Or later at home, sorry. We have a few announcements for today. If you have any joys or sorrows to share this morning, please put them in the basket in the back, and they will be collected and brought forward later. This is going to be an intergenerational service, so everyone is welcome to stay throughout the service. We do have space up front for those young or young at heart. I wanted to also remind everyone that there's going to be a roadside cleanup. So please chat to them or chat with them next week after the service. Are there other announcements for the good of the order? I guess we'll start with Eileen.
Yes, good morning. I have another announcement. One about this morning's service, which, as you may have noticed or known already, is our annual memory tree service, where we honor the losses, the changes, the transitions that have happened over the course of the last year. And you have a leaf on your seat and maybe a pencil, a pen, a crayon, a marker nearby as well. And so anytime during the service, you can write or draw or symbolize in some way on your leaf something from this past year that you're ready to let go of. You can do it at any time during the service, or there will be a special time later where you can focus on it if you don't feel like doing two things at once, listening and writing. My other announcement is that in November, during our season of rest, we're gonna try something different and not be afraid to fail at it. So, thank you, Abby. Hopefully we won't, but we aren't afraid. On Friday, November 17th, we're gonna have church on Friday. We're gonna have dinner church in a semi-potluck setting here in this room, Friday evening. It's gonna be a grain bowl potluck. So we'll make the grain, you bring anything that could go in a grain bowl. It could be as elaborate as some beautiful roasted vegetable recipe that your grandmother passed on to you. It could be as simple as a bag of dried cranberries. It'll be a multi-generational dinner church on Friday, November 17th. And then the following Sunday, because we want to keep our doors open on Sunday mornings as people are coming or going, is just a simple service similar to the ones we did in the summer. So we welcome you to either or both of those, November 17th and then 19th, the Sunday after.
All right. And then, Bill, I believe you had an announcement.
On Monday, I was helping with the Ontario County Food Pantry Food Link distribution, and they brought a whole pallet. Food Link came with the truck from Rochester. They brought a whole pallet of peaches. That's 4,000 peaches, and they brought a whole pallet of plums, 4,000 plums. Well, we passed out 3,000 of each of those, but as you can do the math, there are quite a few left. So as we were then packing up and stuff, the leaders were going to all the volunteers and saying, can you take some of these and maybe to your church and pass them out? And I said, oh sure, I could take a case. And so I pulled the car up, and when I pulled the car up, they said, oh, could you take 2 cases? So I said, okay. So I took 2 cases of plums and 2 cases of peaches. The peaches are maybe not as good as the plums, but the plums are tasty. Pat already has made jam out of them, and we enjoyed some of them. But there are quite a few left, and there are lots of paper bags. So if you could use some plums or peaches, that would be really great if you would take some, as many as you can, with you, and enjoy. Thank you.
Great. And then I believe Pat has something to say.
The fundraising team is working on assembling or collecting handmade goods to sell at a craft table November 18th. And so today you have the opportunity to be part of a pop-up paracord bracelet making factory down in the basement. Not only will you make bracelets for the craft table, and I have it all set up. I'll show you what to do. It's not difficult. You can also build your biceps and your pectoral muscles. I figure half hour will exhaust our supply of clips, so I still have 4 spots available.
All right. And are there any other announcements? All right. As we prepare to be fully together, I want to remind you to silence your cell phones and other devices. We now enter a space for worship. All right. I invite you to join me in the chalice lighting words. I believe that I have a helper, although the helper was walking away. All right. So momentarily we will have a helper, and we will. Right. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, and celebration of the life we share together.
Good morning. So my children, one of whom is illustrating the point of my story right now, as he illustrates a picture. My children, good little Unitarian Universalists, know the value of art. They make a lot of it. Whether it's an elaborate sculpture made of what I might consider to be garbage, or a drawing that they've spent hours on, or a drawing that they've spent seconds on, they produce a lot of art. And sometimes we disagree about which art is meant to be saved forever and which art is ready to be recycled. They would, I think, in their hearts, save everything forever if they could. And I sympathize with the impulse, but I also like to have a dining room table to eat on, and so sometimes I have been known to do a great clearing out of valuable art, I am sorry to admit. Now, my children, being good Unitarian Universalists, also know the value of a spiritual practice. So this conflict between us about whether to keep the art and how much of it and whether we should keep every single piece of art they ever create came to a head over the summer. And we were going to have a bonfire that evening, as sometimes we do in the backyard in the summertime. And instead of saying, I need to get rid of some of these pieces of paper all over our table, I said, could you make a pile of the art you're ready to use as an offering to the fire? Could you make a pile that's an offering? The art you think would be best to offer up to whatever fire spirits we invite this evening. And boy, was there ever a big pile. Finally, they were ready to let go of this valuable, beautiful art they had made because they had some purpose for it. And I think sometimes that's why we come to church, isn't it? Because it is hard. It is hard to live with loss. It is hard to let go of what we love. And we know in this space that we need to make meaning out of loss. And that this is the place we do that. We know that if we can imagine some greater purpose, some other life for what we have lost, some newness in the change that grief brings, then it's easier for us to do the letting go, those of us who are left behind. So welcome to church this morning where we practice letting go. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit here or at home on Zoom and sing together our first hymn, number 1001 in your teal hymnal. Friends, we are a community that says to one another in our celebrations and in our pain, in our joys and in our sorrows, we are with you. You are not alone. So I invite one of the children on the rug, or several of the children, if everyone's willing, to go to the back of the sanctuary and bring the basket of joys and sorrows forward. Thank you, Rory. Maria, you can go too. And now it's time for a story. So if you're far away from the rug and you'd like to come closer, I invite you to come closer now. My microphone has died, so I'm gonna have to stay back here behind the pulpit. But maybe there's a squash in this story, a very special squash. And you can see the pictures on the screen over there if you like. And maybe you'd like to hold a squash and pass it around while you listen. This story is called Sophie's Squash, and it's by Pat Zietlow Miller and Ann Wilsdorf. And it goes like this. One bright fall day, Sophie chose a squash at the farmer's market. Her parents planned to serve it for supper, but Sophie had other ideas. It was just the right size to hold in her arms. Make sure everyone gets a turn to hold it, right? Just the right size to bounce on her knee. It was just the right size to love. I'm glad we met, Sophie whispered. Good friends are hard to find. At home, Sophie used markers to give her squash a face. Then she wrapped it in a blanket and rocked it to sleep. When it was time to make supper, Sophie's mother looked at the squash. She looked at Sophie. I call her Bernice, Sophie said. I'll call for a pizza, said her mother. After that, Bernice went everywhere with Sophie. To story time at the library, to visit other squash at the farmer's market, to practice somersaults in the garden. Every night, Sophie gave Bernice a bottle, a hug, a kiss. Well, we did hope she'd love vegetables, Sophie's mother told her father. Shh, Sophie said. Bernice is sleeping. Sweet pea, Sophie's mother said one morning as they made blueberry waffles. Bernice is a squash, not a friend. If we don't eat her soon, she'll get mushy and gross. Let's bake her with marshmallows. Won't that taste yummy? Don't listen, Bernice, Sophie cried. That afternoon, Sophie's father took her shopping. Sugar beet, he said, Bernice is a squash. Why don't you pick a nice toy to play with instead? But the trucks were too hard, and the dolls were too soft. Sophie clutched Bernice tightly. No thanks, she said. I have everything I need. After supper, Sophie's parents called a family meeting. Bernice napped in Sophie's lap. Why don't we donate Bernice to the food pantry before she rots? Her father suggested. Sophie shook her head. Bernice will last forever. Bernice seems a little blotchy, said Sophie's dad on the way to the library one day. She looks perfect to me, Sophie replied. At story time, some kids pointed and stared. What's that spotty thing? A boy asked. Her name is Bernice and she's a squash, Sophie said, with freckles. Maybe Bernice should stay home next time, Sophie's mom suggested. Why? Sophie asked. She wasn't the one being rude. Still, as winter neared, Sophie noticed some changes. Bernice seemed softer, and her somersaults lacked their usual style. Visiting friends will cheer you up, Sophie said. At the farmer's market, squash were everywhere. Firm, shiny squash. What keeps a squash healthy? Sophie asked a farmer. It's simple, really, he said. Fresh air, good clean dirt, a little love. Well, Sophie thought, I have all that. At home, Sophie cleared the leaves from Bernice's favorite spot. She made a bed of soft soil, tucked Bernice in, and kissed her goodnight. Get better soon, she whispered. That night, while Sophie slept, the wind whistled and tiny snowflakes fell. When she awoke, the world was covered in white. Do you think Bernice is cold out there? Sophie asked her mother. I'm sure she's warm and cozy under her snow blanket, her mother replied. Sophie gazed out the window all morning. She was still there in the afternoon when her father came home with a surprise. You need a new friend, he said. Meet Ace. Ace was nice, but boring. He just swam around and around in his bowl. But during the long winter, Sophie discovered that Ace was a superb silent reader who did fabulous flip turns. And he always listened politely when she talked about Bernice. Bernice was great at keeping secrets, she said. When the snow finally melted, Sophie rushed to the garden. The only thing there was a small green sprout. It looked strangely familiar. Bernice, Sophie said, how was your winter? After that, Sophie, Ace, and Bernice ate lunch together every day. One bright summer morning, Sophie somersaulted across her yard, landed by the garden, and stared in disbelief. Bernice had grown 2 tiny squash. Wow, Sophie told them. You look just like your mom. Soon, Bonnie and Baxter were just the right size for Sophie to hold in her arms and bounce on her knee, just the right size to love. And this is the end of the story.
Now is the time in our service to join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts, both time and money, support the church and its work. Each week, we would like to spotlight a group or committee and thank them for their gift of time. This week, the group is Team 6, also known as our Social and Environmental Justice Committee. People interested in finding out more about social and environmental justice can reach out to Michelle Chetzba. 1/4 of our plate collection this harvest season goes to the Friends of Ganonigan, who support this National Historic Landmark, the only one in New York State, dedicated to the Native American theme. The culture, art, agriculture, and government of the Seneca people influences our modern understanding of equality, democratic government, women's rights, ecology, and natural foods. You can give this morning's offering by placing cash or checks into the basket as it's passed around, or by following one of the options on our screen. Please make a note that your gift is intended for today's offering. We now gratefully accept the offering.
We have one big joy to share this morning, just that it is so nice to be together in person. And to that, let us say, we are with you. We are with you. For this joy and for all those joys and sorrows left in the silence of our hearts, Tom will drop a stone, and we know that we are not alone in that. And now I'd like to invite us into a time of deep imagination. If you want to call it meditation in your grown-up brain, you can go right ahead. But we're going to hear the words of one of my favorite poems this morning called Sleeping in the Forest by Mary Oliver. And I want us to imagine we're doing just that, lying down to sleep in the forest. So you may start. I will ask my friends on the rug in the front especially to show us how it's done. You may start by lying down on your back, right on the floor. Find a place on the rug or off the rug to be still and quiet and to lie down. And I will say, no matter how old you are welcome to lie down right in this sanctuary, right on this floor, if that feels right. Let your body relax wherever you've chosen to be. Imagining there's a soft forest earth holding you. Perhaps your head rests on a pillow of moss. As your eyes fall closed, you can see the shadows playing in the crowns of the trees up above. The bright oranges and yellows and reds of the leaves getting ready to fall. Your breath finds its rhythm from the slow rustle of the branches in a warm evening breeze. I thought the earth remembered me, Mary says. She took me back so tenderly, arranging her dark skirts, her pockets full of lichens and seeds. You also feel the earth like a mother would hold you. She smells of both comfort and change. You can almost feel her beating heart. You hear a river flowing nearby. And as the darkness gathers around you, you can see the stars waking up overhead. Mary goes on, I slept as never before, a stone on the riverbed, nothing between me and the white fire of the stars but my thoughts, and they floated light as moths among the branches of the perfect trees. Listen closely where you sit or lie. Can you hear all the movements and the dance of life and death together all around you? Mary Oliver can. She says, at night I heard the small kingdoms breathing all around me, the insects and the birds who do their work in the darkness. All night, I rose and fell as if in water, grappling with a luminous doom. And you can feel your own breath rise and fall, your own heart beating that steady rhythm of tiny waves over the smooth stones in the stream. By morning, Mary writes, I had vanished at least a dozen times into something better. Let us rest in this forest together a moment more to understand how we also have been changed. I'd like to offer us a reading from the Reverend Jake Morrill. If that sounds super boring to you, I'm looking at my friends on the rug. Remember that we're coloring a picture or writing a few words on a leaf of something we're ready to let go of. My friends in the seats could do the same. Reverend Jake writes this. One night a few years ago, I lay facing up on the frozen blacktop of a parking lot beside the Grand Canyon, listening to a park ranger's astronomy lecture. Polaris, she explains, only serves as our North Star for now. The restlessness of our North Celestial Pole means that in 2,000 years, another star, Erai, will become our North Star. That was news to me. I'd always thought the North Star was just the North Star. It's easy to mistake longevity for permanence. Take the Smoky Mountains. They're among the oldest mountain ranges in the world. But what's there now is only part of their story. At one time, a mountain range ran down the center of the ancient supercontinent Pangaea before the whole thing broke apart, sending some mountains to North Africa, some to the Scottish Highlands, some to Appalachia, where they ended up as the Smokies that I love. A person might despair at the thought of impermanence, or at best, find acceptance. Personally, as a work in progress, I'll admit I find hope. In the book of Jeremiah, God tells the prophet, "Go down to the potter's house, and there I will let you hear my words." Jeremiah continues, "So I went down to the potter's house, and there he was working at his wheel. The vessel he was making of clay was spoiled in the potter's hand. He reworked it into another vessel, as seemed good to him." The potter is a process that forms and reforms. When I was young, I was drunk with ambition. I thought I should be famous. Now, I just want to be clay in the hands of the potter, to be shaped in a way that lets me serve the eternal. Any status, form, or appearance that we claim is only for the time being. Ask Polaris. Ask the Smoky Mountains. What endures for all time is the work of creation that leaves us changed, if we let it, and then changed again, all to meet the next moment as a relatively functional vessel of love. Here ends this morning's reading. And where we would normally have a sermon, I wonder if my young friends can help me preach this morning. If you're on the rug, can you be a helper? You can stay on the rug. You're ready to go, Rory. Let me tell you all, he did not look this way when I woke him up at 7:30. Sorry for tattling on you. But I have some questions instead of a sermon, and could you help me answer them? And maybe if you're sitting in the seats, you could help me a little bit too. The first thing I'm wondering about is, have you ever had to let go of something or someone that you loved, just like Sophie had to let go of Bernice? Maria knows that feeling. Has anyone else ever had to let go of something they've loved or someone? Yeah. So many of us. Rory, do you want to share what it was like? You can tell me, I'll repeat it into the microphone. No. Sometimes it's too tender to share. And my next question I'm wondering about is this: what happens when someone dies? And by that I mean, what do we know for certain happens? What do you think? It's okay to guess. What about in the seats? What do we know for certain happens when someone dies?
Their body stops.
Their body stops. This we know. What else do we know? Well, I'd offer you this. We know so much. We know we have, about those of us who are fully grown, 3.5 pounds of bacteria living in our guts. Not the spiritual sermon you were thinking you were going to get today. We have over 500 species besides ourselves in our bodies. About 1/12 of our genome contains DNA from viruses that afflicted not us but our ancestors. We have deep memory in our bodies, and some of that memory lives on in the form of these microbes, in the form of our DNA after we've died. We know that for certain. About 90% of the cells in the body we call us are not ours. They're a different species. And if many or most of them keep living and reproducing and transforming the body that we loved into food for other life after our death, does that mean we keep living too? I don't know for certain, but I do know that some part of us does, right? I have another question. You look ready, Rory. What does it mean to live in hearts that love? That's something we say in church a lot. What does it mean to keep living in the people who loved us? What do you think? You can make a guess. To live in memory? Yes. In Judaism, when someone dies, we say, may their memory be a blessing, right? Maybe you've heard that in your family. What else does it mean to live in hearts that love? To live in others who have loved us after we're gone? Any grown-up ideas?
I always love the idea that you never really die until the last person who loved you has died.
Yeah.
So
That-
you stay alive in memory.
That you're alive in memory until the last person who loved you has also died. And maybe you, especially those of you on the rug, maybe recently, have heard someone say something like, you have your grandmother's eyes, or your uncle's laugh. We also live on in that our cells are made of DNA that came from every ancestor of ours, all the way back to grandmother ape, all the way back to grandmother reptile or grandmother microbe, the very first mother of life on this planet. In that sense, death is just one of many circular, cyclical processes of life, right? And here's the last thing I'm wondering about. If we know these things for certain about death, does that mean that when we lose someone we love or something we love, that we shouldn't be sad? If we know such hopeful things? What do you think? Yeah, I'm with Joan. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be sad even over a small loss, even over a long time. Change is hard, and big change, like death, is the hardest. Letting go might lead to some form of new love or new life, but it is still a loss of what was. And loss is sad. The feeling of big sadness around loss is called grief. Has anybody heard of grief before? Yeah. Has anybody ever felt grief? You can lift a hand in the air if you've felt grief. The big sadness around losing someone or something we love. It's one of the ways our beloveds go on after death, in our sadness, in our grief, in the kind of empty space they've left in our lives. And it's beautiful that love can be so powerful, but it is sad, and we are allowed to let it be sad. And so now I want to thank you for helping me answer these questions and invite us into a ritual of memory, into a time of honoring all that we have had to let go of this year. And we start with loved ones we have lost to death. And although we do this every year, your grief doesn't have to work on an annual timeline. So maybe you're honoring a loss that happened long ago and you still carry with you. Or a loss that happened more than a year ago but has been particularly poignant for you this year. So I want to invite you to come forward and light a candle to honor who you've lost, a beloved person or animal in your family or your circle of loved ones. You can do it silently, or you can speak their name into the microphone. And if you're joining on Zoom, feel free to type a name in the chat, and we will light a candle for you here. I invite you to come forward now.
grandparents.
I lost 3 good friends this year. Sally, Roz, and Jean. I lost my dad, Ted.
I also lost 3 good friends.
For Ron Young, Angela Woodbury, and Will.
My in-laws, Marty and Don Cronice.
There aren't enough candles, but we light a flame for all of the lives lost in the last month in Palestine and Israel. We know that 3,000 children in Gaza have died in the last week. My friends, you may already have been working on the leaves on your seats or nearby you on the rug. These are symbols of our letting go. So if you haven't already, I invite you to write or draw or imbue with thought as you hold that leaf, whatever it is that you're ready to let go of this year, so that it can become something new in your life, a memory, a space for possibility, a differently shaped love. take a moment with your leaf, and when you're ready, hold it in the air, and our children will come and collect them to hang on our memory tree. Are you ready, children? Okay. Go and get your leaves.
I offer a different story to tell. We
Let us lie down under the tree of grief and loss and find healing here. May we, as Mary Oliver was, be blessed to vanish at least a dozen times into something better. Friends, would you rise in body or in spirit and sing with all your hearts with me this morning our closing hymn, number 411 in the gray hymnal, Part in Peace.
Will you join me in the chalice extinguishing words? We gather this, we extinguish this flame, the warmth of your youth, the warmth of the community, or the fire of our commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Sorry, reading the wrong one.